Hi guys, welcome to this little tutorial on paper 2 section B. People often ask me about how do you approach this, what do you do for your non-fiction writing? So I just wanted to put together a few sort of practical tips of things that you can use. Now, full transparency, some of these ideas are ones I've picked up along the way from colleagues and from other teachers, some fantastic teachers on Twitter and elsewhere. But I've kind of put together a lot of these things that I think might be useful for you. Okay, so the first sort of tip really is the idea of don't talk about the statement. The advice I give my students is to imagine that you've read it somewhere and decided to write your own article based on that topic. So really just to imagine the person reading your response has never and will never see whatever the statement is. So you're just there as a journalist, avoiding any kind of comment like, I agree with the statement, or, to some extent, I agree. And it's quite tricky because obviously for paper 1, that's exactly what you were doing for question 4. You were sort of saying how much you agreed or disagreed with the statement. But that's the first sort of key thing really to avoid. Okay, so what I've put here on this screen that you can see is a number of sort of sentence types that you can use that are just going to add some sophistication and maturity to your writing. One that I use a lot with students when they're starting off their sort of opening paragraphs is this: we all want to live in a world where something, don't we? So it doesn't really matter what the topic is, you can create that rapport with your reader, find some common ground by finding something that you have in common. So we all want to live in a world where animals are treated with kindness and respect, don't we? And it's just that way of creating rapport. So whatever your question is, you can start it off in that way. Another good sort of thing to do is to sort of answer your own question. So there was a question quite recently about fast fashion. So you could do something along the lines, is a cheap t-shirt from Pretty Little Thing, PLT, the worst thing in the world? Of course not. But da, 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 da. So answering your own question is a good technique. I like the if only for the sake of it is time to. So you can create quite a nice emotive tone when you're doing this, if only for the sake of future generations, if only for the sake of the environment, it is time to do whatever. It sounds a nice, strong, sort of confident tone. So this is repeated adjectives. I defo borrowed this, or have adapted this from a teacher I read. I can't remember her name. I want to say it's Jennifer Webb. So credit there. But this idea of repeating, that's a declarative statement, something like cars are dangerous, dangerous to pedestrians, dangerous to drivers, dangerous to the environment. It's just a sense of repetition, but really it's just to help reinforce a particular point you're trying to make. And I think that the not only but also is also one of Jennifer Webb's. So it's not only is sport a breeding ground for corruption, it is also a corrupt beast. Actually, that's not my best example, but you hopefully get the gist from that. Not only but also. I've just put here some adverbs that are really helpful for emphasizing your ideas. So just have a look at those, see how you could use them. The next thing I want to talk about is the use of credible sources. Now, sometimes students think, I can put a fact in, I can make up the information in it, it doesn't matter. The exam board are a bit iffy about this. They're not keen on just made up statistics, but obviously it's highly unlikely that you'll have some facts to hand. I think just go steady with this and go careful with it. And I sometimes read articles where students have said things like, in an interview, a person, Julie from Wolverhampton, said, or in a survey, 99.9999% of people said, and it just doesn't read in a believable way. So if you're going to do this, what I suggest is that you have a credible source that you're going to use. So a recent YouGov poll has found that, or research conducted by the BBC, University of Oxford, or London School of Economics. Pick what it is that you're going to use and see what that's concluded. So something that's credible rather than just, Roger off the street. I like this sort of idea of, it's getting that reader to engage with your ideas. You may ask why, but what you should ask is why. And you can see from my example there, you may ask, why should I pay more money for my clothes? What you should ask is, why am I contributing to child abuse in poorer countries? It's kind of a nice, forceful way of kind of guiding reader response. So over the other, we've got some connectives here to build and to contrast ideas. This next one is definitely one that I saw. Whether that's Jennifer Webb again, I'm not sure. I can't remember, but thank you to whoever that was, because it's a really great idea. And it's just, again, a way of using these sort of starters to build an argument. It's a nice little acronym to remember it here, but, my example here: morally, we have an obligation to reduce our carbon footprint. Economically, it's inexcusable to spend thousands on holidays. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that you use all four at once, but you could use kind of combinations of. Be reasonable. Although you're sort of writing your point of view, you don't want to be aggressive. So some of these I can understand, I can see why, blah, blah, blah. Painting a picture is quite a nice thing to do. Visualize this or picture this. Adverb pairings. Try and find, so it gives you kind of a two sides of it, pros and cons, I guess. So unfortunately, qualifications do matter. Fortunately, they aren't the only thing that counts. So your adverbs are there, the unfortunately. So you could say, unhappily, the planet is in crisis. Happily, we can do something about it. It's a really nice technique to use. And then my last two are sort of more metaphorical, I suppose, but images of something has really struck a chord, and you can see an example. And then really to sort of refine and get to the heart of the matter is my last one. So these are just some techniques you can use, and they're really quite effective. I've talked about, I'm not going to go over this because there's a separate video somewhere knocking around boxing to argue, so I'm not going to spend time on this. What I'll do is I'm just going to leave this up there for you to perhaps pause and have a look at. These are just all the past questions that there have ever been for paper 2 section B. You might find it useful to see what the exam board focused on, and therefore, again, predictions is a really dangerous game, but it's highly unlikely, isn't it, that you would get something on fast fashion in this exam. But anyway, have a look at that. It might be useful. Now, we know that this year, 2022, we know that your text is going to be an article. And what I've just got here, and again, just pause perhaps the video and just have a scan over. I'm not going to read all through of these for you. It's just some of those features of articles. Now, what I would suggest as a little bit of revision that you could do is, here's a sample, just an example question. One that I've just come up with, the sorts of things the exam board do. Because the things I've noticed is that there hasn't been a question on democracy, which sometimes bimbles round, and neither has there been anything really specific around climate change. So I did wonder if that might be a good shout. So, take something like this, a statement and a task, and really just plan using some of those devices. And you can look back there to what those are, but just plan for what some of those ideas might be. Don't sort of be pressuring yourself at this stage to be doing huge, trying to do too many full articles. I think that's quite a lot to do in the last week or so before exams. But take some of these titles and just have a go at practicing or coming up with the kinds of ideas you might use. So, as I say, you could have a look at this one, which is about the climate, and looking at climate activism, or you could look at this one just up here about sort of young people not being allowed to vote and how that's undemocratic, and you could have a little go at those. Okay, so that's just a very brief little overview for you around some of the some sort of quick and easy techniques that could help make your writing look really quite impressive. So why not have a go at practicing a few of these, perhaps with either that democracy or climate change question. Best of luck. Thanks for watching. Bye.